Welcome to the Nightly 5 podcast with Ben O'Shea.
So a 64-point win to Gold Coast to start Sir Doug Nicholls' round. What an effort.
So Doug Nicholls' Indigenous round has kicked off in the AFL, with Geelong suffering their worst loss in 30 years at the hands of the Gold Coast Suns. Yes, that is an actual sentence that just came out of my mouth. Here with more footy is sports editor at the Nightly, Ben McClellan. It wasn't that long ago that we were talking about Geelong as one of the form teams of the AFL. Now they've had 3 losses in a row. They might be the worst team in footy.
I think that's a little harsh. I mean, they were missing a slew of big-name stars, but yeah, they were definitely trounced pretty badly up there in Darwin. So a few things came into play. Geelong just obviously didn't bring their A game. They really struggled in the hot and humid conditions. The Suns have now won 6 games on the trot up there at TIO Stadium, so it's looking like that's becoming a bit of a fortress for them, and I'm sure they'll be keen to take more of their home games there. But yeah, it was just an unbelievable result. I mean, it's the best highest score the Suns have ever scored, 164 points, and it's like the most points put on a team since I think about the early 90s. It's just a massive result. The Swans were up by about 30 points at half time. They put on 70. Typically in those sort of games, you might see a team, sort of hold that lead, and, that lead might even go down a little bit, but they, more than doubled their first half score in what was just, an exceptional result, and really just shows that the Suns have probably had a pretty good list and a pretty strong team, but just haven't had the right leadership. They've got Damien Hardwick up there, and he's quickly turning them into a force to be reckoned with in the AFL.
Yeah, absolutely. And talking about forces, absolute blockbuster happening tonight between the Swannies and the Blues. Who do you like in that one? Well, being a Sydney boy, I'm going to say the Swans, and they're also top of the table. And it is at the SCG, so obviously that's a field that the Swans, really play to their strengths on, and other teams maybe struggle with, given its more round type nature to it compared to the massive grounds like the MCG. But yeah, look, it should be an absolute cracker. Obviously, you're going to have the names of sort of Charlie Curnow and Mackay up against some really great Swans defenders. You're going to have Sam Walsh going head-to-head with the likes of Isaac Heaney. Isaac Heaney's in, unbelievable form for the Swans. I mean, the Swans are going so well. Some of their stars, can't even get a look in, like Luke Parker, who'd been injured at the beginning of the season, but had come good. He hasn't been an automatic selection. So, yeah, it's definitely shaping as the match of the round, as we spoke about on the back of the Lee Matthews column a couple of weeks ago. Carlton, obviously, have had teams kick pretty strongly against them. The Swans are definitely one of those teams. They absolutely flogged Freo last week and were really accurate in front of goal. Also in Doug Nicholls' round games, we've also got Collingwood, who are really finding form. So, as we've already spoken about, they've had a shocking start to the season, but they've won their last couple. They're playing Adelaide. Bobby Hill, who was the Norm Smith medalist, obviously a great Indigenous player for the Magpies. He's come out today saying that he's ready to step up for Collingwood with some of their key forwards, including Jamie Ellett, who took that absolutely unbelievable mark during Anzac Day, being sidelined. So yeah, he's ready to sort of take the bit by the teeth and be one of the go-to guys for Collingwood up front. So that is also shaping as a pretty good game. Adelaide, who started pretty poorly, have had a pretty strong run. So the AFL is really sort of turning it, being turned on its head a little bit, where we thought 6 or 7 weeks in, this would be our top 4, this might be our top 8. And we're now seeing the likes of the Suns and Adelaide showing that, they've got a bit about them, and some of these big name strong clubs, like Geelong, starting to falter. Yeah, absolutely. And talk about Collingwood, if they do get up over the Crows, here's an interesting stat for you. So after, people were really getting the knives out for the Pies after they dropped their first few games to start the season. If they beat Adelaide, it'll mean they won't have lost a game since the end of March. There was a draw in there, but still, they pretty much have won everything else other than that draw.
And so definitely will be pushing towards the top of the table with a win. And now over in the NRL, obviously there's this disturbing rape scandal that's hanging over the head of the league this weekend. But in terms of the games, anything take your fancy?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's Magic Round, so it's obviously a terrific weekend of football in Brisbane, where all the games are played at Suncorp Stadium. Kicks off tonight with the Raiders taking on the Bulldogs, which should be a pretty interesting game, with Ricky Stewart having signed on to extend his tenure in Canberra. The Sea Eagles are coming up against the Broncos. Obviously, the Broncos, Magic Round, they usually definitely try and produce some magic for their home fans. The Sea Eagles also have a pretty strong link to Queensland, with Daly Cherry-Evans, the Queensland captain, playing for them. But yeah, they're in all sorts of trouble, having lost their last couple of games, decimated by injury without Tommy Turbo. Though the Broncos are without Reece Walsh, who's not playing due to a knee injury. So that could be a pretty interesting game. Also, the Storm are taking on the Eels. Again, the Storm have a very heavy Queensland flavour, so it almost is going to feel like a home game for them. The Eels, it's a game they need to win. Coach Brad Arthur's job, really does appear to be on the line now that all the kerfuffle at Souths is settled. Though of course Wayne Bennett is yet to sign on the dotted line to join them next year. But yeah, if they get smashed by the Storm, then Eels fans and even the Eels board might be looking seriously at a change of tenure there, given they've got a pretty rough month. But just on Magic Round itself, Peter V'landys, the ARL Commission chairman, held a press conference today where he sort of canvassed a wide range of issues, and he also revealed during this press conference that Brisbane will continue to host Magic Round. So I guess like the discussion around Gather Round in the AFL, whether it will get moved to other cities to give them the opportunity. He said, even though there had been better offers for some other places, to host Magic Round, they've decided to stay on with the Queensland government. I mean, to be honest, if it's not broke, why fix it? And it's been unbelievably successful for the NRL. It's a massive draw card. Suncorp Stadium, even as a New South Welshman, this pains me to say, is probably the best rugby league stadium in Australia, which lends itself to
in the world.
Possibly in the world, hosting a grand final. But yeah, and the other one really quickly is the next NRL team. A lot of talk about, potentially being Perth, but also Papua New Guinea are definitely in the race. V'landys saying that it was D-Day, as they want to get a sign-off from the Australian government to help make that happen. I mean, that would obviously be massive for the NRL, to have a NRL team based in PNG. I mean, there'd be a whole sort of range of issues in terms of travel and who they could get to go there. And you'll love this, Benny, and they're already talking about getting Wayne Bennett to go and coach in PNG when his stint with South is up. By the way, the South deal he hasn't even publicly agreed to yet. So
yeah. Any new team, you'd have to just link Bennett to them to give them some legitimacy. We'll wait and see. Personally, I'd probably prefer to have a game over in a team over in Western Australia. I think maybe it would make more sense from a travel and crowd perspective. But we'll wait and see.
Yep.
Sports editor of the Nightly, Ben McClellan. Thanks as always.